Today we will build an AI voice agent for real estate agencies. It can find properties that are on the market and then send the property and the broker information to the client through SMS. We will build the voice agent with Vapi, and to fetch the property data and send out the SMS we will use n8n. But before we start building it, let me show you a quick demo.
Hey there, this is Harry with Diamond Estates. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom apartment in New York.
Gotcha. You're looking for a 2-bedroom apartment in New York. Do you have any specific preferences for the number of bathrooms?
Doesn't matter.
This will just take a sec. All right, here are a couple of options for you. 1, apartment at 251 West 14th Street with 1,563 square feet, listed at $4,750,000. 2, another apartment at the same address with 1,475 square feet, listed at $3,500,000. Would you like me to send over the contact info for the broker?
For the second one, please.
This will just take a sec. Thanks so much for chatting with me. I'll get this sorted and follow up soon.
As you can see, it gave us a property recommendation, and it also sent the contact details to my phone. This can completely automate the lead response process, saving a lot of time. By the way, if you need a custom solution for your business, you can reach out to me via my email. I can help you with automations, AI voice agent, and I can also integrate new systems into your existing setup. I will put my email address on the screen, but you can also find it in the description below. To get started, let's open up Vapi. You need to create a new assistant. I already have one, so I'm just going to guide you through my setup. Once you created an assistant, you need to provide a first message. I provided mine, which is, "Hey there, this is Harry with n8n. How can I help you?" Obviously, you can customize it depending on the company you are working with. And I also provided a system prompt. I'm going to put it in my resource hub. But if you work with a real client, obviously you need to adjust it a little bit and extend the functionalities depending on the client's needs. The other thing I did here is I changed the voice. I'm using the Vapi voice and I'm using Harry. And basically these are the changes I made with the assistant. The other thing we need to have is 2 tools. The first tool will fetch the property data using n8n. And the second one will send out the SMS. This will also happen within the same n8n flow. So if you open tools, you need to create 2 tools and you need to use the function tool. And to the first one, I gave a name, which is get properties. The description is this tool's purpose is to retrieve property information based on the input parameters. This is quite straightforward. And if we scroll down a little bit, I added 1 parameter. So let's open this up. It is called property preferences, which will be a string. And this is the property with the user's property preferences. So Vapi will send it to our n8n workflow, and based on this data, it's going to fetch real-time property details. And I also set it to required. The other tool is the send broker info. Basically, this is the tool that's going to send the SMS to the user. And the description is this tool's purpose is to send the contact info of the broker to the user. And I added 2 parameters. The first one is contact info. This is the information of the broker, quite straightforward. I set it required. And the other one is the property info, because within the SMS, I also want to provide information about the property, not just about the contact of the broker. And the description here is the information of the property you're sending the contact info about. This includes details such as price, bedroom count, address, etc. And I also set it to required. And once you have these tools, you need to go back to the assistant and click on tools, and you need to add your tools here. By the way, I forgot to mention that first you don't need to provide a server URL. We will do that once we have the n8n workflow. So let's start working on that. Let's open n8n, and you need to create a new workflow. Let's provide a first step. We need to add a trigger. I'm going to add trigger manually for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a mock value, which will be the property preferences. So what I'm going to do here is create a property preferences variable, and this will be 2-bedroom apartment in Miami. So we will use it for now to fetch the data, to test everything, but we will change it later, and this data will come from Vapi, obviously, through a webhook. So we can save this for now, and let's close this. The next node will be an LLM, and we will use it to extract property details from these property preferences. For example, we need to know how many bedrooms the caller is looking for, how many bathrooms, we need to know the property type, and of course we need to know the city. So we are going to extract this information from the user's response using an LLM. So let's create a basic LLM chain. I'm going to set the source for prompt to define below. And for the prompt, let's say you are a professional data extractor. Your task is to retrieve property data from the input text. When a property is not defined, just return null. And let's add the prompt. This will be a user prompt. And here we are just going to say the property, and we can drag this. And also turn on require specific output format. And now we can close this. We need to attach a model. I like to use OpenAI. And obviously you need to connect your account. Go to platform.openai.com and click on your profile. And here you will see your API keys. And you need to create a secret key. And it will also require your organization ID. So once you have that, you can select the model you are looking for. GPT-4o Mini is perfect for us now. And we need to provide an output parser. And with this, we can provide the preferred output structure of the LLM. So let's select structured output parser. And here we have two options. We can generate from JSON example, or we can define the JSON scheme manually. I'm going to select this because it can happen that some of the values are undefined. And here I can provide types and I can make them optional. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this state here. And this will be bathroom count. And it will be a number. But this can also be optional. So what we have to do is write a question mark after the number. And this will let the schema know that this value can be undefined. So it won't throw an error in case we don't have a bathroom count. And we are going to do very similar things to the rest of the properties. So let's change the second one. This will be bedroom count. And the type will also be a number. And this one should also be optional. And we can delete the items from here. And let's copy this. Let's put a comma here. We need to delete this comma from the end. Also from here. And change this to city. And this will be a string. But this one should not be optional because we want to have at least one property that is available. So it's very important to have the city, otherwise it will throw an error and it's not going to return anything. So I'm just going to delete the question mark here. And let's copy this again, add the comma here, paste it in. And finally, let's add the property type. This can be apartment, house, condo, studio, something like that. So we will also pass this data into the API and it's going to fetch us the proper property types. And we can make this also optional. Once we have that, we can close this. And I'm just going to delete this node. So let's do a test run. Let's open it. And you can see that it created a structured output from the property preferences. Initially, it was 2-bedroom apartment in Miami. And you can see that it structured the data. We have the bathroom count, city, and the property type, which is correct. The next node will be the HTTP node, and this will fetch the property data from the API. So let's find the HTTP. And we are going to use a service called Rentcast. The website is called rentcast.io, and you need to create an account here. And once you have it, you will also need to activate your plan. So if you have a free plan, it will allow 50 requests for free, and this is enough for us to develop the system. And also it only has properties that are within US. So if you want to build a system based on this, this won't return any properties that are outside the US. But I think it's still useful for us to see how we can integrate APIs with our workflow. So once you activated your plan, we can go to the API documentation. And here we have many options. We can fetch the property data. We can evaluate the properties. So we can just say how many bedrooms we have, how many bathrooms, and it will return us the price. But today we are not going to touch that. What we will use is the sale listings, but you can also use the rental listings depending on your needs. So I'm going to open this and we will see the endpoint. So let's copy this and we can paste it into our HTTP request node. And this will be a GET request, and we need to authenticate our user. So if we go up to the Getting Started and scroll down a little bit, you will see that we need to add our API key to the header. So this is what we are going to do now. We can copy this and go back to n8n. Let's turn on Send Headers. And for the name, let's just paste it in, X API key. And for the value, you need to paste in your API key. And what we are going to do is we are also going to send query parameters. And we will use this to send the bedroom count, property type, etc. to the endpoint. So we will get the properties that we are looking for. And if we go back to the documentation, let's go back to sale listings. You can see the properties that you can provide. You can provide an address, city, state, etc. All this data, but we're only going to use the bedrooms, property type, and city. So let's go back to n8n. So first let's add the bedrooms, and we can just drag it from the previous node. And once you have it, we can click on Test Step. And you can see that we received some property data. And if we change it, and I set the bedroom count to 2, click on Test Step, it's going to give us properties with 2 bedrooms. So we can see that the first one has 2 bedroom. The second one also has 2 bedroom. So it works. Let's also add the bedroom, city, and property type. But before that, let's delete this and drag the bedroom count here. Next, let's add the bedrooms. We can drag this in. And let's also add the city. And finally, the property type. Cool, now we can click on Test Step. It looks like it worked. It gave us an apartment in Miami that has a bedroom count of 2. So this one works as it should. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to pin this data to save some resources, because if we are testing it, it's not going to fetch all this data over and over again. And in our case, we need to save our request counts because we only have 50 for free. So let's close this. And you can see that it retrieved 50 items. So basically what I'm going to do is open it again and add one parameter. And I'm going to set up a limit, which will be 2. So I just only need 2 properties. And I'm going to unpin this and fetch it again. And now we only have 2 properties. Let's pin this again and we can close this. Now we can see that we have the 2 items, but we need to merge these 2 items into one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an aggregator. And here for the aggregate field, I'm going to set all item data into a single list. And I want to select which fields I want to keep. So let's open this up and let's select specified fields. And here we can list the fields that we want to keep. For example, I don't want to keep the latitude, longitude, status, data like that, because in our case, I don't want the voice agent to list all of these. What we need is the address line 1. We also need the square footage. We can add the price. I also want to have the listing agent because we want to be able to send this data via SMS. And finally, I'm going to add the property type. And let's test this. You can see that we merged the 2 properties into a single array. We have the address line, property type, price, listing agent. So we can send all this information back to the caller. The next node we need to add is an LLM again, because now we have all this data, but we want to construct a proper sentence that the AI agent can read. I'm just going to send back a humanly readable sentence, and we need to use an LLM to construct that. So let's click on this plus sign, and I'm going to look for basic LLM chain. For the source for prompt, let's select define below. And what we need to do here is I'm going to say, you are a professional JSON to text converter. You will receive information about properties. Your task is to create a sentence from the provided data. Include all the data you received. And I also want to add format the address to be readable. You don't need to include the zip code. And I want to provide an example. And the example will be ST will be street, RD will be road, etc. The sentence will be read by an AI voice agent to a customer who is looking for a property. So it's important to be understandable and readable. And at the end, I'm going to add only include the result without explanation. And let's turn on the require specific output format and also add the prompt, set it to user, and to the message, we can just drag in the data from the aggregate node. And let's close this. Let's add the model. I'm going to add my OpenAI node. 4O mini is good. And let's also add in output parser. Select the structured output parser. And actually we don't need the output parser here, so I'm going to turn it off. And now we can click on test step. You can see now that we received an error. And I think it happened because we passed an array to the LLM and it doesn't really like it. So what we can do here is say json.stringify, and let's pass the JSON data as a parameter to this. And now we can click on test step. Cool, we received an output. We received all the data in a sentence. And as I can see, it's readable by the AI. So we are going to send this data back to Vapi via the webhook response. By the way, this json.stringify is a JavaScript function. So we can look it up. And if you want to know more about JavaScript functions, I recommend checking out n8n or just use ChatGPT if something is not clear. But basically what it does is it creates a string version of the input. And if you do this, LLMs will be able to read it. So it's very useful for us. And this is one reason why I like n8n, because we have the option to use JavaScript within the workflow. And I really recommend to do that if you want to get out the most from the n8n. So let's go back to our workflow. We can close this. And I'm going to change the first node to a webhook. So we can delete this and click on add first step. And let's look for the webhook. We need to change the HTTP method to post. And let's copy this URL and go back to Vapi. And you need to paste this URL into the server URL field. So you need to go to the get properties and paste it here. And you also need to do that for the send broker info. Just paste it here. Now let's go back to n8n and let's set the response to using respond to webhook node. Now we can close this. Let's connect it to the LLM chain. And let's open it again and click on listen to test event. Let's go back to Vapi and I'm going to call the assistant from web.
This is Harry with Diamond Estates. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom apartment in New York, and the bedroom count doesn't matter.
Gotcha. A 2-bedroom apartment in New York. Let me check what's available for you. Give me just a moment. Hold on a sec.
Okay, it looks like we need to add the webhook response. So let's add it at the end. So let's look for webhook response. And let's just close it for now. And let's go back to the webhook and click on listen for test event. Looks like there's some problem. So I'm going to save it and refresh it. And now let's open the webhook again and click on listen for test event. And let's call the agent once more.
This is Harry with Diamond Estates. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom apartment in New York with 2 bathrooms.
Gotcha. You're looking for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in New York. Let me check.
Cool, it sent us the data. So now we can pin this. And what we need to do is send a response to the webhook. And we need to provide a specific structure in the response. You can find that in Vapi documentation. So if you go to the documentation and look for the tool call, we need to find custom tools, scroll down a little bit, and we need to provide the tool response in this format. So let's copy this, go back to n8n, and click on JSON. I'm going to change this, and let's click on execute previous nodes. It looks like there was a problem in the LLM chain. So let's see what's the issue. Yes, we need to change the values because now they are coming from the webhook. Let's switch this value to the property preferences from the webhook. And let's click on test workflow. Let's open this. And now we have the text here and we have the tool call ID. So let's find the tool call ID from the webhook node. Let's switch to expression and let's drag the tool call ID. And we also need to provide the result. And the result will be the text from the LLM chain. And now we can check if it works. So I'm going to unpin this data from the webhook and click on test workflow. Now let's go back to Vapi and let's call the assistant again.
Hey there, this is Harry with Diamond Estates. How can I help you?
I'm looking for a 2-bedroom apartment in New York with 2 bathrooms.
Hold on a sec. It looks like I couldn't.
Looks like there was an issue. So let's see what's the problem. And I think the problem is that we have these line breaks in the text. And what I noticed is when we have this, it always throws an error. So what we are going to do here is we are going to replace these characters to an empty string. So what we can do is we can write dot replace all. And the first parameter will be this line break. And the second one will be an empty string. And this replace all is also a JavaScript function. So if we go back to MDM, string replace all, and you can see that the first parameter should be the part of the text you want to replace. And if you provide a second parameter, you will replace the first parameter with the second one. So in this case, it will find dog and it will replace it with monkey. So you can see, I think Roots dog is cuter, and the output is, I think Roots monkey is cuter. So this is a very useful JavaScript function in our case. Let's see if it works. So let's click on test workflow again. And I'm going to call the assistant one more time.
Hey there, this is Harry with Diamond Estates. How can I help you?
I'm looking for a 2-bedroom apartment in New York with 2 bathrooms.
Gotcha. A 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in New York. Let me find some options for you. Just a moment. Just a sec. Here are 2 options for you. 1, the first apartment is located at 700 Northeast 26th Street. It It has 2,464 square feet. And is
Okay, it
priced
looks
at
like it worked. So it's really nice. And with that, we have the fetching functionality. So next we can work on the send SMS functionality. And I'm going to put it in this same workflow. So what we can do is I'm going to add a switch node. And what it will do is that if the function name is getProperties, it's going to go to this way. But if the function name is sendPropertyDetails, it will go to another way, which will handle sending out the SMS. So let's open the switch node. And what we can do here is drag in the name from the tool call. And I'm going to say get properties. This will be the condition for the first route. And let's add another one. Let's drag in the name. I think the name was get proper send broker info. So if it's send broker info, it's going to go to this second route. We can close this and let's start adding the send broker info functionality. The first node will be an LLM chain. We are going to use this again to format the incoming data. For the source for prompt, let's select define below. And let's say you are a professional text formatter. You will receive contact information. Your task is to output it in a structured format. And let's turn the required specific output format on and also add the prompt. This will be a user prompt and the message will be contact info. We don't have it yet, so let's call the agent again. But before we do that, let's add the model. Click on save. And now we can click on test workflow. But when we test this, we need to click on test workflow 2 times because it will only be valid for 1 execution. And in our case, we will have 2 because the first tool will go to the first route and the second tool will go to the second. So in the middle of the conversation, we need to press it again. Let's click on it and call the agent.
This is Harry with Diamond Estates. How can I help you?
I'm looking for a 2-bedroom apartment in Boston with 2 bathrooms.
1 moment. All right, here are 2 options for you. 1, an apartment at 700 Northeast 26th Street with 2,464 square feet, priced at $3,450,000. 2, another apartment at 62 Northeast 11th Street with 1,063 square feet, priced at $1,650,000. Would you like me to send over the contact info for the broker?
Yeah, to the first one, please.
Give me a moment. Thanks so much for chatting.
Okay, it looks like it worked. It went into the second route. And what we need to do is now we can drag in the contact info that we received from the webhook. You can see that we have the contact info and also the property info, which is really nice. So let's drag in the contact info. And now we can close this. And I'm actually going to pin this data, so I don't need to do the call again. And let's click on test workflow. And what we also need to do is add the structured output. So what I'm going to do is switch to define below and change this value here. This will be a name. I will make it optional. Let's delete this and copy this one. Let's switch it to phone number. Let's copy this again. This will be the email. And one more time, this will be the website. Let's delete this comma. And now we have the structured output. So we can click on test workflow. You can see that we have all the data in a structured format. So we can put it in the SMS field. And finally, what we need to do is add a Twilio node. And you will need to have a Twilio account to use this. and to send out the SMS. So click on plus sign and look for the Twilio. And we need to find the send an SMS message. Here you will also need to authenticate your account. I already did it, but if you haven't done it, you can click on this pencil icon and you need to paste in your account SID and your auth token. And here you can keep the resource as SMS operation send. Here you need to paste in your phone number. So I'm going to find mine. This one. And to the to field, let's drag in the phone number you want to send the message to. Because these numbers are from the US, you will need to add +1 at the beginning. And I think it's going to work like this. But if it doesn't work, what you can do is you can replace these dashes with an empty string using the replace all JavaScript function. So it will work 100%. If you want to send the message to WhatsApp, you can toggle this. And for the body, we are going to add property information. And we can just drag in the data that is coming from the webhook. We need to find property info. And at the end, let's add the contact. And we can use the data that is coming from the LLM chain. So let's drag the name. And what we need to keep in mind that these data can be undefined. And if it's undefined, for example, null, I'm just going to show it now. So let's drag it in. So you can see that it's going to send the contact like this. So it will try to send null in the message field, which is not what we want. So what we can do here is use JavaScript again. And if you look up this nullish operator, what it does is that if it's null, it's going to evaluate the right side of the expression. So in our case, we can just say if it's null, let's return an empty string. So it will not return a null text. Let's implement this. So here, what we can do here is let's delete this and drag in the name. And if the name is null, then I'm just going to return an empty string. And if the phone number is null, empty string again. For the email and website, let's do the same thing. Now you can see that it's null, but if I do it, it disappeared. And basically that's it. It's going to send you an SMS if you click on save. But before you do that, don't forget to unpin this data and also unpin the data in the webhook. And you need to switch the URL to production URL and go back to Vapi and switch the server URL to the production URL. Click on save. Also switch this one and go back to n8n and let's activate the workflow. So it will listen to data from Vapi. And this is it for today. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to hit like, and you can also subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. And don't forget that if you need a custom solution for your business, you can reach out to me via my email, or you can also fill in the form on my website. You will find it in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.